What is up? Welcome to this week's episode of Lambgoat's Vanflip podcast. I'm your host, LURK. Today I'm joined by Mark Hunter, vocalist of longtime Ohio groove metal outfit CHIMAIRA. Welcome to the show, Mark. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I'm glad we got it together.
Yeah, finally. I mean, it does take a little bit of time, especially on my end because I am the sole person juggling the podcast. So if I reach out, I may forget for weeks and then be like, oh yeah, I was fucking talking to X or Y
Yeah.
and then have to go through my email box, which is flooded with just endless emails about promo and stuff like that. But either way, I digress.
I hear you.
I wanted to start this off because I'm pretty sure you won't remember, but if you do, then that's a cool way to start the podcast off. You were on tour with 36 Crazy Fists, I think shortly after Impossibility of Reason dropped, the Roadrunner debut. And you came here to town, Jacksonville, and you did this is probably like 25, 7, 8, 90, 100 years ago, it feels like. But
Yes.
you did like a little record store signing before you played Freebird Live here in Jacksonville. Do you remember any of that? I think you did it with 36 Crazy Fists as well.
So I recall touring with 36 Crazy Fists, of course. I believe we took them on their first U.S. tour, and it was actually shortly after our Roadrunner debut, Pass Out. So you're looking at 2001-ish, maybe 2002. I think it's 2002 because we decided towards the end of that record cycle that we were going to headline, and the record label was kind of done with us at that point. But we felt like we kind of have momentum. We still enjoyed being on the road, so we went out and headlined, and 36 came with us. And I definitely remember playing the Freebird multiple times, and I always enjoyed that venue, and meeting the family from Lynyrd Skynyrd, and I would jump into the ocean after we played sometimes, and then the signing, you lost me there though.
That's
I
all
don't
good.
recall that, unfortunately.
It's all good.
Usually our signings weren't well attended, so
Well, I can attest to that. Yeah, I can attest to that a little bit. I finagled it for some reason somehow. I was doing another website back in the day called the HRN, and I was friends with the gentleman at the time who would run that store here in town at the beach, which wasn't really far away from the venue. But yeah, I think I had brought you and 36 over there, and I think maybe 6 people came through for.
It sounds about right, yeah.
So I felt bad, but then now that you say that they were normally, sparse.
I have glimpses, and we tried to be cordial, and we always felt bad and dumb when we would go to these signings. They were always bad in the U.S., but strangely, when you would go to the U.K., you felt like you were in the Beatles, the lines down the street, and it's just so different.
It's weird how that is. I mean, even with current day stuff, there's a lot of bands that don't really have a lot of fanfare here in America, but then when they go overseas, they're definitely received a little bit differently. For a long period of time, Limp Bizkit was received more warmly overseas than here in the States, but finally I think America's caught back up with Europe on that end. But
they definitely have. We actually played a festival with them in 2012, and in my opinion, this is an era where in the States they aren't really considered favorable
I'll
amongst the masses, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
But we played with them in Australia, and they destroyed the place. It was just bananas. And you just look around and everybody is singing every word. Every band is singing every word. So even the bands are on the side stage, having a great time. They had not fallen off in my opinion. And they absolutely crushed Soundwave and wiped the floor with every band there. And it's nice to see them doing it again over here.
Yeah, I will agree to that. I mean, I grew up under that umbrella of them being the biggest band from my hometown. So,
Nice.
you know,
Yes,
of course, like they were a huge part of my musical journey, but I always thought it was very strange that they got like red hot and then like instantly overnight, basically everyone turned on them and they were not cool anymore. But I'm like, but they still are kind of cool, right? Like I still think they're cool.
Yeah. There's something about it, right? It never, it never truly went away. Thank you for bringing us to that signing, and I'm sorry that we couldn't draw more than 6 people.
It's all good. I wasn't getting paid for anything like that. It was just something cool that I thought was cool that I would do.
Absolutely.
I think I just graduated high school, so like I was probably like 18, maybe at that point. And
right.
Yeah. Speaking of Limp Bizkit, at the time when I would have picked you up in my cool blazer, there would have been Limp Bizkit stickers all over it, inside and outside. So maybe that's good you don't remember that part. But.
That's funny.
I was definitely
Jacksonville. I have fond memories. I think one of the most fond memories I have is when we opened for Slayer on that same album cycle, but shortly before that, it was on Halloween night, and the crowd was just okay to us. Right? It was just whatever. Slayer crowds are notoriously rough on the openers anyway, but we always did okay, and Jacksonville treated us all right. Slayer came on, and that was like the first time I think I've ever been scared watching a pit. Like that was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Almost to this date, it's like in the top 5. Like I would put it still to this date, rather. And I just thought back to myself. I remember standing there going like, wait a minute, I'm in Jacksonville, it's Slayer, and it's Halloween night. Of course this is batshit crazy. It was phenomenal.
Where were you? What was the venue at? Do you remember? Do you recall it? Well, it wasn't Freebird. It probably was definitely not Freebird.
No, let me look it up.
Had to been like the Coliseum maybe, or Metro Park at the time.
Let's see. According to The Edge 2000.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
On October 31st, 2001. Yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah, that was like right after your album release on Roadrunner. Like the same month.
I mean, same month. October 2nd it released. Yep. Exactly.
Well, what a way to hit the road after that album. Even though like you said, they weren't really like messing with you that much at that point, but like, damn. I mean, the album comes out and you're right behind Slayer.
It was a dream come true. That's a band that I literally was the first metal band I got into as a kid, and always, aspired to be as cool and like write heavy stuff like that, and keep it true, if you will. All the things that Slayer had great qualities about, and just to be on tour with them. Like the first day, I was standing there with our bass player Jim, and they're sound checking, and he and I just started laughing almost maniacally with each other, and I don't know what Slayer thing, and they probably didn't care, but like if I were the band, I'd be like, why are these guys laughing at us, right? But here we're laughing because we're just like, this is insane. We don't belong here.
I can only imagine, yeah.
This is such a weird, surreal, like, what the hell? That's fucking Slayer. Like, this is hilarious. Like, this is mind-blowing. It's crazy. We don't belong here. And that was our first. They were like super nice to us, like right off the bat.
Yeah,
that opening day.
You were still dreadlock Mark back in the day, like new metal dread.
At this point, I've had a few phases with that. At this point, I was my hair is naturally curly, and before I had grew the dreads back, I had to go through the awkward afro stage. Yeah, and Kerry King always called me Mafro, like Mark and Afro combined. And so yeah, I had the that was a hairdo. Yeah, I
mean, too bad that didn't stick, because like Kerry King gives you a nickname, you'd kind of hope you could use it for most of your life, but obviously it was just a phase, Mom. So there's that.
Yeah, you just feel like I felt like I looked like a piece of broccoli or something. Right?
No, I mean I get it. I have growing up in middle school and high school, I had very bouffantish type hair that would just like it's wavy, and then my dad or whatever, they would comb it back, which I don't think my hair is supposed to sit naturally back. I think it's naturally forward and lays down, but when you do it backwards, like I would get called Lord Helmet from like Star Wars, Spaceballs. Right. They would call me like Lord Helmet because my hair was just so gelled and hairsprayed and shit.
That's
funny. Speaking of Slayer and whatnot, you're gonna play with them again this year in Kentucky. I think you just got named for Louder Than Life 2025, and they were one of the first bands, along with Acid Bath, that were announced. So, how's it been for you guys coming back the last couple, year and a half and hitting the stage again? And how's that been after, time away from everything?
Every show is treated basically like it's going to be the last, because it seems like such a undertaking to get it together, and it feels good. Just, in the short answer, it feels phenomenal, actually, to like be able to get up and play and still have fans, and then to see all of these festival organizers and promoters and bands want us to, come on, just get back on the wagon with you guys. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's a great feeling. On the other end, it's a big challenge to get it all together. So I enjoy the challenge, and leading up to it, our keyboard player Chris and I basically handle all of the managerial stuff. We're basically like the Bill Murray of metal, right? Gotcha. We are. If you want to get in touch with us, you just get in touch with us. We don't have an agent. We don't have a manager. And we've been flying this way basically since we started talking again in 2017. And every time we've tried to get the wheels moving, something will derail us. I wound up getting cancer and beat that. And then COVID hit. And then it's just one thing after another. And it's like, come on, man. So this year, it actually seems like we have the ability to do more than one or two things, right? So we're happy to announce Milwaukee Metal Fest, and like you just said, we just announced Louder Than Life Festival, and then we're doing Welcome to Rockville. So, of course, I know our fans don't just want us to play festivals, so I mean, we can't keep doing that, but this is a good training ground, if you will, for us to see like how we do with flying in and kind of being thrown into all different types of scenarios. And luckily so far we've passed these tests of camaraderie and business and making a profit, and it's like, hey, we're finally figuring it out. It just takes time, and we want to make sure everything we do makes sense, and that everyone can still kind of live their lives. Half the band raises children now, and so it's just one of those situations where I think people are hesitant to get back, fully get back on the merry-go-round, but we're trying to at least enjoy. I think our guitarist Rob put it very well. He's like, hey, we built this house. I'd like to like hang out in a bit longer than just a day.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So that's a great analogy. And when he said that, I agreed, and it's like, all right, well, let's do some more shows, and we're taking on everything that we can. And I will say that there will be more this year than what's announced, but I unfortunately can't say what yet.
No,
because
we get
it's
it.
Nothing confirmed on the dotted line yet, unfortunately. Yeah. But we have like, all right, let's do this or let's do this. And so we're hoping that we can announce some more things sooner than later.
Now, you've only had, like a handful of shows, right? Like less than 3 or 4, right? Like 2 shows maybe?
We did 2017 was kind of the return, like, hey, this is like, let's have a better closing chapter, if you will.
Yeah.
And if that's the last thing we ever do, then that's a great way to go out. We played our hometown. It was a CHIMAIRA Christmas show. And then we went away, and we came back and did back-to-back shows for the 20th anniversary of our album, The Impossibility of Reason. Then last year we did the Incarceration Festival, and then the Lamb of God Cruise, which was actually 3 shows. So okay. It's a handful, essentially 5-6 shows total in the past
year and a half.
Well, I was gonna say 7 years.
Oh yeah. I'm saying yeah. Since the actual return or the announced return. So
4 shows last year total, and then this year, I mean, we're 1, 2, at least 3 are announced. So.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely see you at one of those for sure. I don't know if I'm.
You're in Daytona Beach, right? So you're not too far.
No. I'm like we're an hour out. So
Yeah, that's not far.
No, Rockville though used to be in Jacksonville. That was very not far, so that was much better. But we got to go down there, get a hotel room and stuff like that. Can't really just go back and forth.
It's brutal.
Yeah, it's an hour drive. Plus the traffic with everything going on all those days. It's easier just to be there.
Right.
But no, Rockville's a good time. Since they've moved it down to the Daytona Speedway, it's definitely increased in size as far as attendance and bands and days. So overall, it's a smashing time. I think it's like last year's number one most attended like heavy festival or rock festival or whatnot in America.
Sick. That's sick.
So it's always a great event because there's definitely a lot of stuff that like say Lambgoat doesn't cover necessarily, but like there are bands that I've also grown up listening to or watching that will come back, reunite for a couple festival shows. So, like I had Orgy is one of those bands I was really back into back in the day, and then the new metal wave stopped and I got into other things. But I always loved that, first and second Orgy record. But, last year they played 5 songs. So I finally got to check that off the list.
Finally got to see it. Right. Yeah, exactly. That's cool. But that era gets dogged, but I play a lot of different stuff on my stream, and whenever I play new metal, everyone just goes nuts, myself included. Yeah. It's just fun. There's just something fun about it, something nostalgic that hits us all. And while it might not be something that I'm listening to every day of the week, when it does come on, it's like, man, this is fun. An old Korn song will come on, and we all go crazy, and it's a good time together.
I think about it because my dad was 40-something years old when I was a young kid getting into music, right? So I was listening to his music, and I'm thinking, well, fuck. Is, Limp Bizkit and Korn, my Led Zeppelin and fucking, REO Speedwagon and shit? Is that mine?
Yeah, right. Which is funny to think about.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But, I mean, technically, for the most part,
it really is. Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is, and it's just hilarious.
Man, those were good times. Do you guys, did you mind being kind of thrown into that umbrella, under that moniker of being part of the nu metal wave? Even though you were much more heavier than some of the nu metal bands that were going on, and you come from an area of the world where, early metalcore was already kind of defined. I mean, you're around Integrity and some other kind of big hardcore metalcore bands that probably influenced you guys also. So did you guys mind having that little tag of nu metal sometimes, or did that bother you at the time?
It absolutely bothered us at the time. But the weird thing it's because I didn't really knew that word wasn't a thing. When we were consciously, mm-hmm. We were just part of a movement, and you're hitting all the correct notes there. Where we do like nu metal, like Korn and Limp Bizkit. We like stuff like Sepultura Roots, which is, I know Max recently called it caveman metal, but come on, at the time it was nu metal. But I do agree with him, though. It is caveman metal. Yeah, now that you're like, damn, you're right, bro. That was, okay, anyway. But we're also coming from death metal. Deicide is a band that we're constantly referencing in the practice space, and Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse especially. Our first album, This Present Darkness, the EP, the riffs on there, we're literally saying, play the Corpse notes for the harmonies. When the guitarists understand, okay, well, Corpse is going to go up here, and that's the type of harmony they would do, et cetera, et cetera. But we're, so that word wasn't really, excuse me, and also we loved the metalcore roots that we lived around. Ringworm, Integrity, Apartment 213. We had a fucking killer scene. And we were part of all that. So, the clothes we would wear in the very beginning is very hip hop or 90s. Yeah. I'm wearing FUBU stuff and this is lit. I wouldn't have said that back then, but you know what I mean. Yeah, no. But when the word started becoming more and more popular, the term nu metal, it would get associated with bands and you said also correctly that were much lighter, if you will, than us. And it was man, we don't we don't want to be associated with some of these ding dongs, man.
Yeah.
Like, for lack of a better term, right? Like these bands don't sound like us. Like a lot of them were singing these very melodic songs, and they would be like, you know, Linkin Park or something. And it's like, you know, I don't think if some, like a Linkin Park fan is going to hear Severed, and there's going to be a major disconnect here, right? A little bit. So
it might be.
But I don't know. Nowadays, it's like it really does not matter. But yeah, that anger actually pushed us into Impossibility and changing the sound essentially. And
there definitely was. I was going to say there's definitely like not a departure, but there's a different trajectory. I even felt that back then. You know, as a younger kid, I was like, they're definitely not going like the nu metal route, because when you guys came out under Roadrunner Records, like at that point, I'd already been like fully immersed in all the nu metal-ish Roadrunner roster that they had, plus, you know, everyone outside of it, just this, that, the other. And I think I kind of just assumed nu metal because you guys had like a programmer, keyboardist, other kind of person in there. It's not like you were doing like weird rap rock type. Yeah, you weren't doing none of that. But right, I loved that too in some projects. It's not like I needed it in all of it, but some of them were benefited of it. But yeah, I think you definitely got lumped into it, and then Impossibility came out, and I was like, oh fuck! Like Gold Room was like a breakdown that my fucking group of friends just probably had on repeat for months after you guys put that out. So we were just like wanting to write something like that or whatnot. But there was definitely a departure, you know, from maybe more like even the samples were probably like, you know, keys were a little lower down in the mix and whatnot. So yeah, it's interesting that you said that you kind of like changed the trajectory a little bit sonically.
100%. So nu metal was definitely like starting to get annoying, right? So it gets oversaturated like any genre, right? Even like then like how many metalcore bands all of a sudden start popping up after a little while once the genre changed and everything, right? That just oversaturation, and then what we were hearing, of course, wasn't pleasing to our ears. So I just remember just feeling like I want to go back, you know, to like that old school thrash sound that we grew up and listening to. And we were, as a band, listening to Justice for All quite a bit, and we would sound check with a lot of that music from that album. And that was kind of like channeling, you know, a little bit of anger, a little bit of desire to go back to an earlier, an earlier sound. And then, and with the electronics, it's always been tough to describe Chris's role in the band. And genuinely, we've always thought of it as like a Nine Inch Nails situation. Being from Cleveland in the industrial, I've been a Nails fan my whole life, essentially. And I've always thought that the soundscapes that Trent does, and of course other bands like Ministry and Front 242, and I mean we can just keep talking, Skinny Puppy, all that stuff was like, that genre was quite thriving in my teens and during my formative years of music. So that was Chris's reason, if you will, and unfortunately, nu metal like characterized him as like a DJ Lethal type or something in the beginning, and we almost wanted to make shirts that had to say like, I'm not a fucking DJ in the beginning, because that's what people would call him. Yeah. You know, they didn't know what does that mean, sampler, and then that really didn't make sense. So, but we're coming from an industrial world, and then Roadrunner was very not keen on us having Chris in the band and having like this keyboard or sampler or DJ, and they thought it prevented us in a weird way. And there was like conversations before Impossibility, and you know, we stood by our vision, and we stood by our bandmate, of course, and Chris stayed, but his sound also changed, where on Pass Out he was programming with another engineer. His name was Justin, and Justin came from actual like nu metal records like Seven Dust he worked on, and I could name a few others if I really search the archives, but you get my point. Yeah. And so he was kind of helping Chris, and a lot of the samples on that record, I would say, are way more nu metal. And whereas Impossibility and Then On, it's more into atmosphere, more into creating like soundscapes and like sonics that would enhance the song. Like I look at it like a film where if you were to take John Carpenter's Halloween, and if you've ever heard the folklore and stories behind that movie, he would present the dailies and the images are just kind of like, okay, but then you put that haunting score on top of it and the sound effects and the creepy synth and it gives this Lynchian unnerving, like, that's what we've been really like, seeking actively since Pass Out. And Pass Out has way more of the like sounds going on, which are cool, but is a little oversaturated in that area.
Well, I mean, he, in Chris's defense at the time, he's trying to get some love and some face time on the record. You know what I mean? He's got very small parts. Like I've gotta.
He was doing. He has always been the guy that has to kind of fight to get his spot heard a little bit more with the guitar player too, right? Oh, yeah. So I'm always kind of fighting for Chris because I like the soundscapes and the stuff. So the mix has always kind of been interesting when it comes to like keys and things like that.
Yeah. Slipknot's an interesting DJ programmer duos thing they got going on. I've never in my, I've watched Slipknot a million times probably at this point, live and on, the internet. But like, I still to this day don't have a clue what Pinhead guys doing. Yeah,
right.
Like at least the guy the tortilla guy or Sid, like if Sid's doing DJ stuff, I'm like, I know that's DJ stuff. But Pinhead guy just, bobbing his head or Tortilla Man, I'm like just running around stage. At least when you're Clown or something else, you can bang on a keg or, there's visual aid to help with that, sonics. But like, 9 guys in a band. Do you need 2 that are handling basically what like one guy could do? I don't know,
Hey, their chemistry is insane. And all I can say is I can agree with you that I stood on stage with them for an entire tour. And I'm not sure what's going on either sonically because I was usually terrified of Clown. You didn't know what his mood was going to be that evening. And sometimes he would run at you with a bat. It wasn't necessarily aiming at me personally, but there might have been a clock like right here.
Yeah.
And he was aiming at that clock, so it seems like he's coming at you with a bat and you're terrified. What I liked about touring with Slipknot is it felt like they were method actors in that sense where as soon as they put the gear on and the masks, it was a complete change of personality and character, and it was legit, and I enjoyed being around that atmosphere.
Yeah, they're also one of those weird bands that transcended genres too, because I definitely remember picking up the self-titled record thinking like, what the hell is this? And again, I'm in my like heavy phase. I'm just stepping out in my own world. The internet's just starting to bubble up. I'm starting to get a little underground bands here and there. I'm starting to pick up on that. And then, I'm listening to Slipknot. Iowa comes out. I'm like, damn, dude, System of a Down's also out at this point. Toxicity's out. I'm like, damn, these are like heavy records. A little more heavier than my normal nu metal stuff. And then that kind of like bridged the gap into like going into like, well, Glassjaw was the nail in the coffin that basically like got me out of nu metal into the hardcore. But, I remember like really liking Slipknot, those first 2 records, and still going to like hardcore shows and being like, oh, these people do not like Slipknot at all. And they think that shit is super lame. And I'm not going to talk about that anymore. But then like a year or 3 go by and I'm like, I'm starting to see Slipknot shirts in the fucking mosh pit. Like the guys doing ninja dancing with Slipknot shirts on. I'm like, I've already kind of moved on now and these guys are catching up. It's like, what the hell, dude? So they were another one of those like bands that really cross boundaries on the genres, and they're accepted all over, I think, by all forms of heavy people now.
It's interesting what artists are able to achieve that, and the one that blew me away was Billie Eilish, right? Like that's like an artist where like you're like, yeah, the metalheads love her, and like it's just like she transcended like on that first record.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell, man? Like,
well, she's also, I think, a fan of a lot of these like pop stars, and like Selena Gomez, Billie Eilish, one of them. Who is some other ones? Selena Gomez. I said that.
What's that? I can't think of that name. Sabrina Carpenter is a new one, right?
Yeah,
That's not new, but like popular. Not
She's
Doja
popular.
Cat, I feel transcended.
Yeah,
Doja Cat is
but
popular with metalheads now.
A lot of those artists also, for some reason or another, for one point or another, have shouted out like other small bands. Like Billie is, I mean, Knocked Loose is not really a small band anymore, but she was all side stage for the Coachella performance when Knocked Loose played Coachella, and then I think Selena Gomez, or who, I forget. I get them all mixed up because I'm not like a fan of any of these women.
Yeah, I hear you. Right.
But they've shown love to like Under Oath and He Is Legend and Every Time I Die. So there's been a couple times where like a big group of Taylor Swift type normie fans will will hear something weird.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me that when that kind of thing happens, like how you're able to crossover essentially, and it takes a special type of situation.
I'll agree. So we got some shows coming up this year. You got some things announced already. We've been over that. We've glossed over that.
Yeah.
CHIMAIRA, the self-titled, is coming up on its 25th year anniversary. So I don't know, like you said, you have some stuff planned. So I don't know if you want to let all the cats out of the bag or whatnot, but CHIMAIRA is, going to hit 25 in August. So
I don't mean to correct you, but it's
20. Oh my God. Yeah.
No, you're fine.
Yeah,
20. I don't want to feel that old yet. Yeah. That's all.
I clearly am. I can't remember how to do maths. So
well, we just had our debut EP turn 25.
Yeah.
That was this month. And for that, we uploaded all of our tour dates that we had on tape anyway, from our very first run, basically, as a up and coming band, just signed. We did a few East Coast dates in like Massachusetts, and with like All the Remains out of all the bands too. I open up this video and I look at the marquee and it's like us and All the Remains. Like, holy shit, that's 25 years ago, man. But so we did, something like that for fun, to celebrate that. We are working on a live video right now for the Impossibility of Reason shows we did. We had that professionally filmed and recorded, and we are pretty close now to final mixes and edit of the live portion of that show. And we kind of want to put out that concert as its own thing. And I feel there's this when we were, I don't know, if you go back 15, 20 years, it was a little more prominent and more exciting to get your hands on a show, if you will. And I'm trying to have us bring that vibe back, if you will, in that era of when like a physical copy of a show. That's the goal anyway, right? Like we'd like to put that out on HD, 4K, UHD, and so we're just looking at all the specifics of that, if you will, and I think that we're looking at some vinyl releases, but
nice.
It's basically Chris and I working on everything and the shows and all of that. So we're cooking. Just
take some time.
We're in the kitchen.
No, I got it.
And we'd like to see some things happen, but yeah, the main focus now is finishing that edit and what we're going to actually do with it. Of course, it'll come out online in some capacity because we know not everybody wants a physical product. But I personally went back to collecting 4K DVDs and such just because I could go on and on about streaming, but like
no, I think we should, because that's part of what.
You figure
you had this big tirade a couple of years ago about like music and the trajectory of music and all this other stuff. I definitely wanted to get into that, and I feel like we're just naturally kind of, progressing into that. So by all means, yeah, you can go off on it.
I love the technology aspect of being able to, flip on my TV, throw on Tubi, throw on my Plex, whatever, and watch something that I want to see at ease, right? What I'm sick of is paying multiple companies for their streaming services, and the prices keep raising, and you're not getting a lot of the times the movies you want to see. Like, let's say, for example, it's Halloween, and you're like, all right, well, you're not watching the 1978 Carpenter one without a paywall.
Yeah.
So maybe you could watch it in March, maybe. And then, like, you're only going to see the 1080 version. It might even be formatted incorrectly. And I'm getting really nerdy on that sort of things. But I'm like, wait a minute. These movies that I love, half the time, they're not even on the streaming sites. And you'll pay, like, you start adding it up. If you want all of them, man, you're like at almost $300 a month. And this is including like a Hulu, a Disney, and the top tier memberships too, if you want the 4K, right? And when they're streaming in 4K, it's only like a 4 gig file they're streaming it from. So it's not the true uncompressed 4K. And I'm like, man, fuck that. If $300 a month times 12, right? I'm like, I'm just going to go buy my collection again.
Yeah.
Black Friday sales, 50% off sales. And then, like, thing you know, I'm like, I have this massive collection built already, and I'm not paying any streaming sites anymore. And I have the uncompressed, quote unquote, best quality of the product, right? And so I'm not knocking technology and where it's going, but I am knocking like what we're getting for the prices and where I'm at as a consumer. Like, I want, if these are my favorite movies, I want the actual, give me the fucking real, like, the uncompressed audio, the uncompressed video file. And if that's what, as a artist, if I have the opportunity to present the same sort of package to a fan, then that's what I would like to be able to do, regardless of like what the market is, right? Like, that's determined by the fans that want it. I don't care what the industry is. And people forget they can like play these things in their Xbox or their PlayStation, and it's not that hard to play like a 4K DVD. So, just and like something like musically, I still take great value in Spotify, but I also appreciate the vinyl. I personally haven't collected it because, man, I have enough collections, if you will.
I get it.
But I appreciate it. And my friends that collect vinyl, I listen to what they value about it. So if we're going to put out a product like it, we want to make sure that it's something that you open, you're like, yes, this is satisfactory. And we, haven't been able to fully take advantage of that until maybe now.
Yeah. That's weird that you were very, not weird. It's just unique. You're nitpicky about the 4K, and you can tell if it's just not true 4K. I can't tell any of that shit. I got like an 80-inch, like a 70-inch TV. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I'm like,
yeah. So you can until you start fucking with it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So this is so stupid that like when I was like such a novice at it, and I got Full Metal Jacket, for example, and for whatever reason, a lot of these physical products, they'll give you one disc is the 4K and one disc is the Blu-ray. I didn't pay attention, and about an hour and 30 minutes into the film, I'm like, I think I'm watching the fucking Blu-ray. Because I'm like, it's clear, but it's not like blowing me away, right? And I'm like, sure as shit, I had the wrong disc in like an idiot. And then we put it in, it was like we put glasses on. That was the best way to describe it. It was just like, what the fuck? Like, the pebbles on the ground were so much clearer, and just things like that, those minor little details. So when you kind of become aware of it in that sense, when you're watching something stream, it looks great, but you'll start to see like little pixelation artifacts in your blacks or things like that, or maybe it'll like, compress in and out just due to buffering, like rarely, but it does happen. But I noticed it in the artifacts, the little blotches, like it'll be in the blacks or something if you're streaming it. And it's like, it doesn't bother me so much. But if like it's one of my favorite movies, I want to see it fucking perfect, right?
I kind of like the 80s 90s haze, I call it, or early 2000 haze. I don't want it to be
too.
I don't want it to be like I want to see the pebbles in the background. That to me is too weird and too real, right? Like I like the hazed over gloss of like presented TV or movies from back in the day. It just makes me feel like even when I watch like sometimes we'll just go back and watch old movies just because it is more fun to do that than watching whatever is cool on streaming or whatever series is on. It's just also the acting is different. The way they edit it, the way they cut it all is all different. But yeah, it's really cool. I started to realize like I really do like the haze of like old school film and even photos. I mean, obviously now that we're in 2025, Instagram and every other image sharing platform or image platform's got something that will retroize your photo or your video or whatever. So it's all going back to back then, but it's just wild to have the dichotomy to where like you can have everything like 4K, 8K and see like hair growing on someone's chin, or you can just watch something that's like through a cloudy TV, through a cloudy lens, like, you know, filmed on a cloudy lens. And it's just kind of like this weird haze.
It's a good, for someone that loves film and loves discussing film like myself. I enjoy these conversations. I love the haze. I love 70s haze. I love, you put on a Fulci movie, it looks like you put Vaseline over the screen, right? Like I too love that. So now you're looking at some of these films where the directors are remastering their films and it's becoming controversial with fans. So James Cameron is pretty much the big conversation piece when it comes to this whole argument. And I have not watched it yet, but apparently True Lies kind of does what you're talking about, where he goes a little too hardcore with the clarity and the grain reduction and things of this, where it's some of the fans are disappointed.
Yeah.
I watched The Terminator and I was blown the fuck away. It looks so fucking good, man. Like the grain is awesome. It was just super fucking clear, like where like you could see the rivets on the fucking ships in the miniatures in the beginning, and like it didn't suck me out of it. Terminator 2 sucked me out of it.
Interesting.
Like I was like, that's foil on the guy. Like I had never felt that before. So you are completely correct, where in some films the special effects can maybe lose their magic.
Yeah, they get ruined a little bit.
A film like Full Metal Jacket, that experience, the way Kubrick is and the way it was treated, it's a fucking great experience. So there's some where you're like, okay, this is fucking great, and then there's some where you're disappointed. And I was disappointed with the Deer Hunter, for example. I was expecting it to actually be able to see the film for once, because it's a dark movie, literally like dark, and it just didn't help it. It just, you know, like our Friday the 13th remake, that movie just sucks in terms of it's just too dark. Yeah. Then the 4K, like it was no, this is way too dark now. Like, so it like brought that out. Oh, wow. And I love that movie, by the way. That I don't want to say that Friday the 13th sucks. That's one of my favorite ones, actually, the remake, but or whatever you want to call it, reboot. But anyway, I get real nerdy when it comes to discussing film, and I appreciate like the old nostalgic feeling. Like the first time I wanted to show my wife Altered States, I was like, no, we got to watch it on VHS. You need to see it this way first. Like there's certain magic to that old grainy feeling that hides a lot of the special effects that were magical to us as kids.
Since we're on the topic of streaming, and, you know, Chimera was around at a time where like streaming really wasn't super prevalent. And then kind of like maybe when you started to hint the comeback in 2017, it was maybe getting a little traction, but it's not what it is today. And you guys have since, you know, kind of quote unquote come back, reunite, for better or worse of the terminology. And you guys are like amassed, at least on Spotify, like almost 140,000 monthly listeners. I don't know how many you had prior to like all these announcements and whatnot, but you're in that ballpark. Do you like, how are your feelings or the band's feelings on like streaming in general? Like, because again, you kind of already lamented about like movie streaming and television, like video streaming. How does the band feel about like Spotify or Apple Music or something like that? Especially because like as a band, you guys haven't really put anything out in the last,
Sure.
Almost decade plus. So what's the consensus for you guys? Love it, hate it?
Sure. I don't think we have an opinion on it too much in terms of like, I haven't heard anybody that is too outspoken about it. I'm pretty sure everyone uses it or Apple Music, right? Spotify or Apple Music for convenience. I don't know that anybody in the group owns CDs anymore or any of that sort of thing, but I could be wrong. We probably aren't the best to ask about this because we haven't been in the fight, and we haven't, like you said, we haven't released anything in such a long time where we control everything now. So it would be interesting if we were to release something. I would probably have a different opinion on it. As now, I'm just a consumer, and I listen to music 5 days a week with fans, on my stream. Spotify is fucking gold to me because then like I can just we can make playlists of any kind and get through it and have a good time and listen to music together. I would not be able to do this with CDs and vinyl in the same capacity and the same. I love a vast library,
right? And
for me to be able to like play my collection for friends and fans or make them mixtapes, it's fantastic. So as a consumer, I have nothing negative to say about the pricing of it. It's fine. Excuse me. In terms of what I pay. Now, if the artist side of things, it's fucked. I've watched the whole Spotify. The Spotify documentary is fucked, right? The whole attitude about, or not the documentary, but there's a TV show about it on Netflix, and it's a Swedish show, and they show like how this whole fucking thing came together. And while it's genius, it's also the last person they care about is the artist, and it's so prevalent. And I do not like how it has reduced music to sort of this background thing. And what's even scarier is AI music. And I have been making like AI music constantly. And when I say we, I'm always usually talking about stream. I stream on Twitch, and it's mainly hanging out with fans in my treehouse, essentially, right? So we're just making these AI songs, and we have a fucking blast. They're funny. They're way more personal. You and I can write a song right now about this moment and like have a laugh about it, and then like it's going to be catchy and stuck in your head for a month. And like when I go back to older music, sometimes it's like, this isn't as fun. This is weird, and that bums me out a little bit. So
I can see that.
I'm really going through my Spotify list. I'm like, man, I'm always listening to these same bands, and I'm trying to like get even more of a diverse palette, and it becomes harder. So then that's where AI is like, damn, dude, I just literally created a genre. Like this is insane. Like I've never heard this before. So that's a whole other argument in itself, because that is essentially stealing from artists as well. Like, right, they had the program itself has to like copy. Well,
it's trained on something, and that's the internet or whatever has been fed. So
that's us, all of us. Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole big thing going on now that I guess people are just now finding out, like all these open, ChatGPT or large language models or AI or whatever you want to call it, they get fed on copyrighted material. And like no one's realized that until now. But I brought up the Spotify thing because I thought it was quite interesting. and you even said you used a term, making music background, like making it background music, and you always hear about how horrible Spotify is, obviously, to like for paying out royalties on this or that or and whatnot, and you never see anyone defending them, which obviously it would be like, stupid for an artist to probably come out and be like, actually, what we get paid is appropriate. But I then start thinking to myself, because I think it was like Snoop Dogg or someone said that they get paid like 0.003 cents per stream. And I'm like, okay, so like you get 3 streams, that's a penny, right? Or around a penny. But then I was thinking, like, how much should you get paid per stream in general? And granted, Snoop Dogg's probably got a lot of, I went down the rabbit hole. I don't think he gets a lot of like big checks from Spotify because he is featured on like hundreds of people's songs, probably not getting a full royalty credit that you would had you like just put out a bunch of albums and whatnot. That being said, I always try to figure out like what is an appropriate amount per stream that an artist should receive, because like you said earlier, back there, it's forced music into some background situations, whereas like Spotify playlists just may be on the background of a shop that you're at and you're not really paying attention to it, or you may put on Spotify and walk away for a number of minutes and forget it's on and stream it for 7 hours.
Right.
Like someone's got to get paid for those streams, but also like what is the appropriate amount,
I wish I had that answer. All I know is that when it was initially negotiated, it seems that the owner made a deal with the labels to like funnel a specific amount, and then the labels then funnel that amount back to the artist based on their deal
right.
and how it's going to recoup to them. So and then that rate winds up being so fucking low, like 0.004. But man, I want to verify, but it might even be 0.0004. I think it's that, which is even worse. I don't know. Who cares? It sucks. But I see exactly what you're saying, Larry. But like, yeah, man, it's just sounding in the background. Like, how much is really
like how much should that person
raise our fee? Yeah, if we raise our fee, then we get fucked. I think the problem lies in the record label, because I wonder.
That's something I don't know about. I'm only coming
I think
to
the problem lies in the label. Whereas, like, let's say if we had $100,000 that we owe the record label, then the way they've negotiated is that 0.004, whatever it is, has to recoup that way. That's fucking terrible. Like, it's never going to happen, right?
Well, the thing, like, I was thinking somewhat opposite of that. You're talking about going through a label. Which again, probably is not the best option, but like for independent artists or whatnot, let's say, whatever, I buy the CHIMAIRA CD back in 2001 and I only buy the physical CD. You only see like what, $4 average from that as a band, or $3 as a band?
No, so pretend again it's in the $100,000 we owe the label.
Yeah.
I think $1 of it goes back to recouping that $100,000.
Okay.
And then we see it. So you never recoup that $100,000.
Right.
And then you don't see money.
Right. So,
it's a really big loan, essentially, with a really bad interest rate, like an 80% interest rate.
Of course. It's well documented. But, and again, this is going to sound like I'm shilling for Spotify and all this shit.
No. Let's do it.
In my eyes, I've probably listened to the stream version of any CHIMAIRA record more than I have the physical copy, which I do have.
Me too.
Right. So you'll get, but then essentially, like, let's say 1,000 streams correlates to an album sale, right?
Right.
I think you would get more money off of the 1,000 streams than you would from a physical album sale through a record label. On top of that, you would then amass the financial, the revenue from that after the 1,000 plays. So like, I could play fucking Limp Bizkit and buy like 10 albums in a month easy. You know what I mean? Like, just buy like, I might stream it 10,000 times in a month, whoever, whatever. To me, that is like a little bit more beneficial because they'll probably see more revenue from that. and than they would if I just buy the CD and listen to it at my house on the CD, you know? So, and again, artists have the choice to use it or not use it, that platform and that service. I think Neil Young probably realized he needs to get back on Spotify when he said he's getting on Spotify. So like, you know, there's definitely an audience, and like, why would you, it's the same guys that are bitching about fees on eBay, which I understand, but like, it's the world's giant garage sale, or like,
exactly.
Amazon's the world's giant free market. So like, yeah. And again, there's probably a lot of stuff that goes involved into the back, the back behind the scenes of running one of the biggest digital streaming platforms in the world. I'm sure there's a lot of servers and financial stuff that goes along with that, let alone like people that you're employing or fucking labels you're paying or deals you're striking. So it is actually kind of interesting that you kind of point I should clarify. You were saying that, some of the blame does fall on the labels, which is something I never even really thought about, just because obviously they're going to get their grubby hands on some of the money and eventually filter that out. But I wonder if that is, exposed as often as, because Spotify gets a lot of, bad press for the poor streams. So
it's they're in bed with the label, and they negotiated. They hardballed the labels, and then the labels have the deals with the artists, and the labels with the deals with the artists are definitely weren't set up to be favorable for the streaming era, especially all those older artists. Now I don't know how things work, so I can't comment on it. But the way our deal was, right, the recoupment rate is really slow going. So when the rates are negotiated in a way that's 0.004 cents, then you're never, if you're worrying about that, then you're going to really worry. If you want to shill for Spotify, you want to say something like, Spotify now puts us on these playlists, it puts us in front of more audience. They don't have to try to, save up to buy an album, and then they can't, what if they don't like it? Then they never want to buy another one again, versus they can just go scan our catalog and maybe they become a fan. Because of the monthly listening and the playlists and the getting suggested in the algorithms, this increases our fan base. And then when we play, this is also Spotify's argument, is that the artists will become bigger. And I think streaming, and we've always kind of had that mentality that streaming is going to put our music in the hands of more people, and that ultimately is what we're doing. We're not trying to be like, well, I would love to make 0.007 cents. Then I'd be so much happier. That's not what it needs to be fair, sure. Spotify created a service that I think is essential in a lot of ways to helping bands get discovered in ways they never would have before, in countries they never would have before. And again, you might get suggested in an algorithm where somebody's creating their own playlist, and then they don't, what the hell is this? And they hit it, and then they become a fan. I've become fans. I was scarred from music after leaving the industry for a while, and I didn't even want to listen to it. So Spotify actually helped me get back into it by learning exactly what I'm telling you. I discover the Fulci band. It's the first fucking thing that comes to mind, right? I'm making a death metal playlist. They pop up. I'm like, Fulci, well, I like that director. They gotta be good. Boom, and then it's the same thing as if I'm a kid and I'm like, well, I pick up the CD and I don't know who Obituary is, but the guy's wearing a Sepultura shirt that's on Roadrunner, so I'll take a chance on it. Now, I luckily liked it, but man, if I would have spent $18 as a kid and I didn't like it, fuck.
I mean, it happened multiple times. I've lived that. I even I talk about returning a CD one time as a kid. I was like, this Eve 6 CD sucks. They had one song. That's the only song I like on here.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
So, I mean, I haven't bought a CD since 2006. I prefer streaming. I love Spotify in that regard. Do I think that it would be cool if I made more money from it? Sure. Do I care? No. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
You know, I've been in and around the music world for 25 years, right? And I honestly think, like, this is going to sound like bad, but I think the worst thing to think that you're going to get paid on is the music. I think that's the least monetary thing in this whole world.
T-shirt salesman.
Yeah. Shirts, live shows, you know, merch, other things like that. And now you have the other side of the coin where, like, you have bands like yourself, you stream, you have an audience, like, you've gained an audience through the music, but you can also, like, monetize elsewhere.
Do other things, correct, yeah.
And it's just a weird kind of world to where, like, yeah, we all love the music part, but that's actually not, like, the biggest driving force for, like, revenue in this world.
No, right. And that, yeah, it's probably unfortunately, the actual art. But yeah, I saw Trent Reznor talk about it, and I thought he's the one that I lifted the background thing from, and it's pretty accurate. Where it used to be an experience when you would get an album, right, and you would, like, sit down and you're focused, almost like a movie or a film, where you would listen to it and sit there and you're reading the lyrics along, and you're like,
yeah. I mean, it was like that for decades.
But at the same time, you'd also have that album on the background when you're skating with your friends. Yeah. So it's background music, and there might be way more accessible background music now. And is that a problem? I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily a problem, because I enjoy being able to have music going on in the background all the time. Especially in 5 years ago, I didn't even want to listen to music.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I hate the fact that Spotify does get a lot of hate, but I also, like, really enjoy the fact that everything's at your fingertips. And there's not, I mean, like, if it went away tomorrow, like, if, you know, Spotify got banned in the US or some shit like that, or if digital streaming music was, like, outlawed or whatever, dude, everyone in the music world, there's so many bands that would go back to, like, the caveman days of, like, no one knowing who they are. And there'd be, you know, it's just, it's a give and take, man. I don't know. I'd rather, like, I really enjoy having and I have hundreds of CDs right here. Like, I buy CDs still, because I think the sound quality is much better than Spotify, just like you think the video is better than 4K. Yeah. That being said, I want the physical copy because I grew up doing that, and I grew up, you know, listening to records and thumbing through the liner notes. And I've talked about that probably on every other podcast that I've done. I've done 100. You're like 168. Nice. Dude, 100 of them I'm talking with somebody about, like, yeah, remember back in the day, nostalgia. Right. Yeah, right. It's a big one. But yeah, it's one of those things where if something really were to happen and we lose something like that, I think a lot of people would be really bummed out they bitched about it for so long, you know?
It's certainly. And what I like that is, I think that there should be a little bit more of an option, because fans do want to own physical copies of things. I enjoy cassette tapes again, right? I loved how tapes were back in the day, and I like that some artists are doing that again. And there's options for people if they wanted. The vinyl comes out a lot. I wish there were a little bit more, right? Where it's kind of shifting. Same with film. It's kind of shifting to try to get all of these retail stores to not do it. And I get why. But I hope it doesn't, like, I don't think it would go away anytime soon, but I hope it, like, somebody picks up on it that, like, I think there's a little switch here. I think people want physical media again.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm talking out my ass, but so I think, like, stores shouldn't be too quick to go away with it. That's what I'm trying to get out.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of kids these days are getting away from taking photos on their phones. And that's why you see a lot more, like, smaller digital cameras that reflect, like, what we had 25 years ago or something like that, like a 2 megapixel camera. And then, you know, just with tapes coming back, to me, I was like, why in the world is anyone younger than me wanting a cassette tape? Because, like, I feel like I was the end of the cassette tape to the CD, you know, world, because I grew up listening to tapes, you know, recording mixtapes on tapes, all this other stuff. And then the CD came out, and then, you know, years later you have the rewritable CD or the CD-R, and I'm just thinking about, like, I'm never going to buy a CD again when the CDR came out, and here I am just hoarding CDs still.
yeah. That's cool that you still have your collection.
I got rid of it. I'm rebuying.
Rebuy them?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's cool though too, when you're able to get to a place in life where you can go and buy things again, or buy stuff you couldn't get when you were a kid, right? Like there were certain albums or movies. I'm like, damn it, I can finally own this movie now, right? Like,
I mean, it was cool when. Because I started just before like the repopularization of CDs came back out, so I would find like all these CDs that I thought were somewhat rare, like from hardcore or new metal or metalcore or metal, and I'd get them for like $2 or something like that, and it'd still be in decent shape.
Yeah.
And then like all of a sudden, over the last couple of years, like that $2 CD now is like $10, and I'm like, man, what the fuck? We're going right back to the whole.
Oh man.
How is it $16 for a CD still?
Yeah. I do like that we have those stores that you can go and buy the used stuff though, right? To still like we still, at least here, we have a chain called the Exchange that does that. Nice. I don't know if that's national but we have quite a few of those stores near me, which is awesome. Like if you want to start building your collection of any sort, they have like cassettes or Nintendo games. Like I went and bought some of those again. Some of the old Nintendo games.
God, dude, I have to stop myself from that because I like it. I then get the collection bug, right? Like you were saying, like you have too many collections. It's like, well, I have these CDs, and like I don't even really like collect all this. Hold on,
dance party time.
Hold on, dude. That is nuts. That is like a live stream DJ show that I recorded years ago for some reason. Just now decided to start playing on fucking Apple. Either way, my bad. If you like Ancient Deep, that's where you should go check out. They're pretty good. But either way, God, what was I saying right before that fucking shit started popping off?
I don't know, man. When dance party music hits, it's
I know. As a DJ, it really does.
We were talking about physical media, and you were talking about that I mentioned stores that sell. Yeah, physical media. Then I
was bitching
price.
About like the used price is now like $15-$20. I was bitching about that.
Yeah. And then the dance party started.
Yeah, all right. Well, we're just gonna keep it moving then. Sorry to the listeners that have better mental capacity than my ADHD little brain, but I cannot remember what we were just talking about 60 seconds ago. So here we go. Well, Mark,
amnesiac species.
Yeah. What I would like to say is there's so much we did not go over in this brief little time. I would like to get together with you when you are in Florida this summer.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Maybe we do like an in-person thing. I'm trying to get away from this fucking
I understand
Zoom stuff, and I don't want to get back into face-to-face because this is better conversation and everything like that. But with that being said, I appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate us finally linking up after months of back and forth. My fault. That's my fault. Mark is definitely responsive if I were to email him, but again, it's juggling a fucking whole grove of things.
You're fine, man. I juggle a lot doing the band. Do the band. I actually have like a day job where I'm a web guy.
Oh, nice.
At least I can do it from home, right? But I do websites for local businesses around here. I'm a caregiver for my mother, and so I stay busy doing odds and ends things. So,
nice.
It's good to finally get together and be able to just shoot the shit.
Well,
hang out.
Like I said, hopefully we'll get together when you're in Daytona, and then hopefully maybe
let's do it.
Maybe again at a later date with some other things that you guys haven't announced yet. Like you said, you're going to be popping up in certain different places of the country. So we'll obviously report on that, and this will come out in the next couple of days. So be on the lookout for that.
We'll post it all over.
If you don't mind sticking around for 3 seconds, I'm going to end it,
Absolutely.
and then I'm just going to shoot your ear off for a little bit. But Mark, thank you once again. CHIMAIRA.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate
Reunited. Go pick up a record, physical copy, or stream it on the whatchamacallit.
If you could find it, man.
I have found it. I have found some of them.
I'll try myself.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Take it easy.